Welcome back to the Puzhitsky podcast, everybody. Today, my guest is Gary Lipovetsky. I finally did it. I found somebody with a last name that is almost as hard as mine to pronounce. Not quite there yet. Gary is a content creator, a podcast host, the co-founder of Creator Method, and along with his wife, who you might have heard of, Valeria Lipovetsky, they are the masterminds behind Valeriainc, which with over, I think, 6 million followers across all platforms is undoubtedly one of the most influential online communities out there today. It was an absolute pleasure to sit down with Gary and pick his brain about his wealth of knowledge and experience in entrepreneurship, content creation, and even marriage and relationships. I had a ton of fun talking to Gary. I learned a lot, and I'm sure you will too. So please enjoy my conversation with Gary Lipovetsky. All right, welcome, Gary Lipovetsky. Am I pronouncing that right?
Oh,
There we go.
very nice. But you pronounced it like a native Russian speaker, I think. That's my guess. Am I
Yes,
correct?
that is correct. Yeah, I speak Russian. I grew up in like a Russian, Ukrainian, Polish. My last name is Puzhitsky, which is
Yeah, I
Polish.
saw that.
But
Well, my last name is Polish too. I
yeah,
believe it's of Polish origin.
yeah. So all the SKYs, that's all Polish, right? Usually you hear
That's
the
what I hear, man.
skis. Yeah. Yeah, so
So
there we go.
how you were born, sorry, you were born in Ukraine?
No, I was born in Toronto. My parents are from Latvia.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. So they moved here, I think in 94, which was just after the dissolution of the Soviet Union,
Hmm.
and then I was born
Yep.
in 99. So I was born here. I guess that makes me, I always mix this up because that makes me a second generation, right? Not first generation. My parents are the first generation.
If you were born here, no, your parents are immigrants and you are first generation. You're Canadian born, so you're the first generation that's born in Canada. I'm an
Yeah.
immigrant. I'm in the generation before you. So I was born in Ukraine and I came to Canada when I was a child.
Okay. Okay. So that, yeah, so that does, I think that makes you the first generation and I'm the second gen. And then my kids will be the third gen. I think that's the way it works.
It depends how you define it. So if you define it as you are the first generation to come to a new country, then
Yeah.
yes. If you are the first generation to be born in a country, then no.
Okay.
So I think it depends how you define it. I mean, we can Google it and figure it out. I don't
I
know how
think I
interesting it is, but either way, I get
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So but so where did you come to from Ukraine when you immigrated here?
Sorry, before we get into it, I just want to congratulate you on your success because I've been looking at your social media and you're a funny guy.
Thank
Uh,
you.
I've
I
been I've been
appreciate it.
enjoying I've been enjoying your comedy. So so congrats on that. Yeah, in terms of where I came from, so I was born in Kiev. I was born in Kiev during communism. I was born in 1973. And then in 1976, my parents who were in their mid 30s at the time, moved to. We were supposed to move to Israel. Back in the mid 70s, there was something in all of the Soviet states at the time. It was called the Iron Curtain. So it was very much like North Korea is today, where nobody was in, nobody was out. It was just basically like a big prison. The only people they were letting out were Jews. So they didn't like
Hmm.
Jews. So they said, all the Jews, you guys can bounce. We don't need you guys. So what was happening at the time, that was shortly, like Israel formed in 19, I think it was 1948, and then Israel had a mandate that anybody who's Jewish anywhere in the world, Israel would take in. And so there was a mass exodus. There was like a mass immigration of people leaving the former Soviet Union, especially in a post World War II environment. I mean, it was over 30 years, after World War II. But yeah, a lot of people were leaving, and my parents and my family were one of those people. We were allowed to leave the Iron Curtain at the time,
Right.
and we were supposed to go to Israel, and we went for 6 months to Italy. We were in Rome, and that was kind of like this international buffer zone where immigrants go during like a period of time, while their paperwork is being done. And when we were there, my dad heard about Canada, and so he was like, you know what, fuck it. Like, we're not gonna go to Israel, because the whole premise, one of the main reasons why we wanted to leave, or so my parents tell me, is why they wanted to leave Ukraine was because they didn't want me to go to the army. I was 3 years old at the time,
Mm.
where I was two, and it's mandatory army. My dad, being, quite frankly, being a Jew in the Soviet army in, like, I think it was probably the 60s. it wasn't fun for him. It wasn't a good
Yeah,
scene.
yeah.
And so they didn't want me to go to the army. And then when we were in Italy in that 6 month period, they said, you know what, like we still don't want him to go to the army, even if it's in the Israeli army, because that's like mandatory as well. So my dad found out about Canada and he got the paperwork done, and we never went to Israel. We just went straight from that like buffer zone in Italy and Rome, and we went straight to Canada, and that was it. So yeah, we arrived in Canada in 1976.
1976. Okay, yeah. So you spent most of your life in Canada, I'm assuming,
Yeah, I lived in Canada up until 3 years ago.
up until 3 years ago, and then you moved to where you are now. Where are you now? You said Miami, correct?
I'm in
Okay.
Miami. Yeah.
Okay. So you spend most of your life in Toronto, right?
Yeah, man. I mean, I arrived to Toronto when I was three. Or no, sorry, I arrived to Canada when I was three. We lived in Calgary. And so we lived in Calgary. I lived there between the ages of 3 and 11. And
Oh,
then from
Calgary.
11, yeah, and then from 11 to 48, I was in Toronto, and then now I'm here.
Cool.
And now I'm 50,
Yeah.
and now I'm 51. So I've been here 3 years.
Okay, that's awesome. Yeah, I have a big like a skit series. One of my first skit series that went like viral was like Americans in Europe, and I was in Spain a few years ago and like on this
Yeah.
nice cliff face, and like you
Yeah.
see this beautiful ocean, and I told my buddy to film me, and he's like, okay, well, this is some stupid Instagram thing. And I'm like, wow, that would be a perfect place for a 6 lane highway. And just things like that, like the American mindset versus the European versus the Canadian. So how are you finding that adjustment? How different do you find the US to be versus Toronto? Because everybody says Canada's
Um,
like kind of Americanized, right?
no, yeah, I mean, I think Canadians think Canada's Americanized. Look, I think
Exactly.
it depends I think it depends where you go in the United States. From what I've seen so far, and I haven't spent a lot of time outside of Florida, but from my understanding, every state is like its own little country. Like it's got its
Right,
own
right.
kind of sets of laws. It's got its own culture. Um, I don't believe that Canada's Americanized. I just feel like again, like I think it depends what state you go to. I feel that Florida specifically, it's far more capitalist than Canada. I feel like now that I've been living here for 3 years, I just feel like I don't want to get too political, but I just feel like Canada is so much more socialist
Hmm.
than capitalist. I think Canada is almost like it's like socialism disguised and as capitalism. But Florida, I feel, is like truly capitalistic, and the way that Florida supports entrepreneurs is very different than the way Canada, especially lately. I mean, with all these taxes coming in and with everything they're doing, like they just make up new taxes. The luxury tax, I don't know. That's
Right.
and then if you're a property owner in Canada and if you rent it out, you're basically like it's like if it feels like you're a villain by default, right? So
Hmm.
and we own rental properties in Toronto, we still do. So yeah, I mean, I think that's probably culturally the biggest thing. And then the other thing is like I don't know, I don't want to say freedom because you're free in Canada as well, but here you just like
Arguable.
freedom and well, look, I think it depends on what side of the political spectrum you fall on.
No, I get it. I get what you're
Um,
saying. I mostly said that for comedic effect, but I do feel like again, I'm only 25 years old, so my time on this earth has been limited, so to speak. But like as I was born technically in the way latter end of the 90s, so I still remember growing up in the early 2000s, and I kind of see the shift going on, right? And like personally now, I'm in comedy. My goal is to get out of here and to get to the States, right? I was just in Texas. I visited Texas. That was awesome. Austin. Just
I'm
went
going
to
to Texas. I'm going to Austin later today. I have a flight later today.
really awesome. Have you been there
Yeah.
before?
No, no, I have
Enjoy
not.
it. What are you
I have
going there
not.
for?
Valeria and I were invited to be on a podcast. So we're on the podcast, I think, tomorrow. So we're flying in tonight. We're
Awesome.
gonna hang out, and then we're on a podcast tomorrow, and then we fly back. I think we're there for 2 nights, so we're just gonna chill a little, check it out.
Cool, cool. Is it a short bald dude by any chance?
No,
With the last name that rhymes with Hogan? Okay, no. No, yeah,
no,
there's a
no,
lot of
no. It's not. Is Rogan? Is he in Austin? Is he
he's
in
in
Austin?
Austin. Yeah, so it's crazy, right? So like I said, I'm in the comedy world. That's kind of my main thing before I even started social media, and
Yeah.
I was there obviously for that, and I got to see his club and got a bunch of cool opportunities. And other than the comedy scene, which is crazy there now, and absolutely exploding. Lots of tech, lots of creators, right? Podcasters. I think Lex Friedman
Sure.
is there. This guy Ryan Holiday, I like the Daily
I
Stoic
believe,
guy.
yeah, I know the Daily Stoic guy. He's great. Cody Sanchez is there. I don't know if you know who that is. Cody, she was recently on my wife's podcast. She's awesome. You should check her out. It's a lot of stuff on business mostly.
Hmm.
And then there's this guy Alex Hermosi. I believe he's in Austin as well. You should check him out.
Okay.
He's pretty cool too. Alex
Yeah.
Hermosi. So yeah, no, look, it's definitely a budding scene over there. So definitely worth checking out. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it was really cool. And it's cool also because I've been going to the States for a while now, mostly states that kind of border Canada for just like, sports competitions since I was a kid for like judo and stuff. But having to visit just now Texas and LA, like I visited both of them this year, and
Yeah.
it was very interesting to see how, like you said, even in the States, I felt that so much, how both of those states had such a different vibe and energy. You know what I mean? Like, so I really felt like I was in a completely different, not even country, a different world when I was in LA
Yeah.
versus
Yeah.
Texas, right?
Yeah,
So,
listen, man. Like, look, first of all, in regards to your jujitsu, like I'm letting you know now, I'm not getting in your guard. That's not going to happen.
yeah, 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 yeah.
You see, I saw your content. But
Take my
listen,
back though.
I
Take my
think
back.
yeah. Well, that we can discuss, but probably not. Um, but um, but yeah, man, it's like I don't know. I just the thing is that growing up in Canada, you always feel that it's the same thing, right? Like you're literally on the border of the United States. You're right there. You have all the same opportunities that you do if you were in the States. But realistically speaking, you don't. You just don't. And I believe that in any kind of career that you have, like if I were you, I would be getting your ass down here as soon as possible in a permanent way. That's my that's my position on it because I believe, and now more so than ever, like I put it to you this way, like since we got here, our shit doubled. So
Hmm.
like in the last couple of years, like our shit doubled. And would it have grown if we would have stayed in Toronto? Probably, but more so than doubling, just like on the KPIs, like on the metrics, it just like the world that's opened up to us in terms of big thinkers. And like, don't get me wrong, there's a lot of wealthy people in Canada and in Toronto
Yeah.
specifically. But things just hit different here. Like when you meet people, like Miami's a global hub, right? So when you're in a place like Miami or any kind of major city in the United States, these are global hubs like New York, LA. And when you're in a global hub, you have people doing global shit. You know what I mean? So
Hmm.
when you're meeting people here, you have people with companies that are doing shit like all over the world. You have people coming in here, people who pass through Miami. Like
Right.
a lot of people have a presence here, so they'll have a property here or they'll have some business here. But people who are passing through here are very different than the people who are passing through Toronto because Toronto's not a global hub. And then the
Hmm.
other thing I'll say about Toronto, because of kind of while we're on the topic of like you're asking me about Canada versus the United States, is when you're in Miami, and I'll just talk about comparing the two cities rather than the two countries, but when you're in Miami, when you're having conversations with people, people are talking, and people have a view of the world. People are like they're looking around and they're seeing everything that's going on in the world. In Toronto, the conversations there, the ones at least that I have, I don't want to speak for other people. People are talking about Toronto. People are seeing what's going on locally. People don't really have these kind of global perspectives because they don't have global, they're not as globally influenced. They don't have people coming through and setting up shop from around the world. Like,
Yeah.
my neighbor is like, my neighbor is like some celebrity from like Brazil. My other neighbor's a professional tennis player. Anna Kournikova lives down the
Nice.
street from me. You know what I mean? So when you're in these kind of different when you're in this different ecosystem, like it really affects you in a way where you start thinking bigger. You start thinking, okay, like how do I go? Oh, it's cool to have like 1 million followers. But it'll be fucking cool to have 30 million followers, right? So
Yeah.
using that as just one metric. So you just start thinking a lot bigger when you're in a bigger pond. So when we were in Canada, I would say like with our business being like Valeria's social media is our main business
Yeah.
and everything stems from that. And I felt that we were like a big fish in a small pond, and it felt comfortable. And I'm kind of talking like with you, you know what I mean? Like to you, like you at your follower count and your audience size, you're already on the larger side. Like you're on the larger side in Canada, specifically as a comedian with your audience size.
Yeah.
And it's great. And you're becoming like this kind of large fish in a small pond, which is nice. And it's a comfortable feeling. But when you then take that risk and you go to a place where, quite frankly, like your numbers here in the States, you're
Yeah.
now on that lower side of the spectrum, but fuck, do you have a big runway?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Hey
So
man,
that's
you're
kind of my
you're
take.
preaching to the choir 100%. And like ever since literally even before I went to Austin, that was my goal, is to get to the States, because I think like if we're talking, so you talk to me as a comedian, a lot of us are kind of like purists, so to speak. I don't really see myself as a creator, even though I accept that part of my job right now. And as you can see,
Yeah.
I'm investing in it. But I still see
Yeah.
myself
Yeah.
as a comedian where I want to advance in my career. And even for that, right? For content creation, I feel like, maybe there is some space, like you said, runway in Toronto, but I understand completely that in the States it's the major leagues, right? I'm in the minors right now, basically what you were saying, right? It's
Listen,
it's
when you say sorry to interrupt you, but when you say like you're like you're not a creator, or you kind of have maybe issue with that title, that's a semantic debate. At the end of the day, you create content, and whether your
right.
content is comedy, or whether you're an interviewer, or whether you're a fucking doctor talking about how to heal people, whatever it is, everyone is a content creator.
Hmm.
Anyone who is putting things out to an audience, you're a creator. So yeah, man. Look, I think, yeah. Like, to me, I guess my question to you is, why are you still there? Like, what? You
You
know what I
want
mean?
an
I like to
answer?
push people.
You
Yeah,
want an
tell me the
answer?
answer.
Visa, baby.
Sure,
Visa,
man.
visa, visa.
So, okay, so hold on a second. So, when it comes to a visa, you are an entertainer.
Yeah.
So, have you looked into the O1 visa?
I have like, so I've been lucky enough to open for Christina P, Tom Segura's wife. That's how I have all my
Hmm.
connections in Austin and everything. So
I
she's
saw your
been,
picture with him.
yeah, she's been, so his wife is who, Christina P. They have her YMH studios together. So
Yeah,
I opened for her, and she's been so kind to me and given me so many opportunities. And she hooked me up with a lawyer, and I talked to her about it, and it's a whole kind of like bag of worms, because like, so I have to get the visa, then I have it for 8 months, and then I have to renew it, which is, so I'm going for this O1, right? And
yeah.
like I have a deal memo with her through Christina. That's one deal memo, and then I have to, I'm looking into it right now, basically. It's like in progress, right? So
Do you mind if I ask you? Do you mind if I ask you like a question that you can say like it's none of your business to?
sure, yeah, go ahead.
Are you making money doing what you do?
Yeah, not a lot.
Okay, regardless. Okay, that's fine. So if you're making money, if you haven't already done so, you can incorporate yourself in the United States. So you can set up
Yeah,
a US corporation,
yeah.
and all of the money that you make, even your Canadian revenue, you can flow it through like legally through that US corporation. So now you're showing revenue in the US. So when you go to
Mm,
apply for a visa, your corporation, your own corporation that you own, you solely own your US corporation, can now sponsor your visa. And now you're coming
okay.
in as an L1,
All
right? So
right.
you start like putting that revenue through. So let's say you do a gig and you charge them whatever you charge them, or whatever revenue comes in, um, rather than like you giving them an invoice from your Canadian corporation, you're giving them an invoice from your US corporation. And then
Right.
that money starts flowing into the US. And then once that is there, then you simply do an L1 visa where your corporation, your corporate entity, is sponsoring you as an individual, as the operator of the company.
Right, that's interesting. And then I wonder what the restrictions are on that for me to like set up tours and like perform and stuff like that. Because I think that's like, I'm pretty limited in my knowledge in this space, but I'm pretty sure that's a different world, right? Like to do business in the States and then to perform, that's what that O1 is
Once you
for.
have a visa, no, once you have it doesn't matter. Once you have a visa that allows you to work, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter what the nature of that work is. You could be a
Okay.
laborer, you could be a comedian, whatever. As long as you're getting paid for something,
Okay.
it's your ability to earn income and declare income. And you have to get like a social security number, and you got to get all of that stuff. So something to think about. Look, I can always put you in touch with our lawyers.
Sure, sure,
Um,
yeah. What'd you say it was
who
called? I
who
write it
who
down. L1?
it's an L1. I think it's an
Yeah.
L1A, which is the
Okay.
visa. But I
Right,
mean, it's
right.
a fully legit thing. Like you set
Mm-hmm.
up a corporation. That's if you have revenue. So
Yeah.
if you have revenue. Now there's different thresholds. So maybe I don't know how much you make, but maybe your revenue might be enough. It might be too low. I don't know. I think you should definitely be speaking with lawyers. There's other options too. There's like an E1 visa where, the people that you're talking about, they could take you in as an employee. And all of the things that I'm talking about are legit. This isn't
Hmm.
like Russian style. This isn't
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Vasya
yeah.
is gonna
Risky business.
Vasya сделает тебе a green card,
Yeah.
не бойся. It's not that. It's like it's legitimate. So you can come in and potentially on an E1 visa. I think you need to start. Look, I'll put it to you this way. I think that if you truly want it, you
Hmm.
can get it. Your
Yeah.
your limitation is not the visa. You can figure it out. If you want it bad enough, you can figure it out. Bro, like I moved my wife and three small
Right.
kids to the
Yeah.
United States. Like,
Yeah.
believe me, yeah, it's hard, but you can figure it out. And
I
you're young, man. You're 25 years old. You got a
yeah,
fucking huge like runway ahead of you, man,
yeah,
professionally.
no, absolutely. Yeah. And yeah, like I said, you're preaching to the choir. I think Austin really attracted me. LA, I wasn't too sure about, but yeah, and I just got married recently myself a couple months ago. So
Congrats, man.
thank you. I
Congrats.
appreciate it.
Congrats. Congrats.
Yeah, so I
Congrats.
have
Married
to
young. You married young. Good for you.
yeah. Yeah, that's I'm sure everybody knows about your style of content, you and your wife Valeria, right? Like I literally it's funny because I have like a my Russian Ukrainian family there. My mom is a huge fan of your wife. So when I told her that I'm gonna
Thank you.
interview you,
Thank you.
she's like, "Oh wow, like that's so cool." Um
How
but
old? So how old's your mom? How old's your mom?
my mom's like 50, just over 50 right now. I don't want to,
Uh,
yeah.
That's
But
cool. Your mom's my age.
yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
So she's a big fan, and so is my wife actually. She knew exactly who you were and
Awesome.
who your wife is. So
Thank you. Thank you.
she's from Siberia actually, which is interesting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome, bro.
So
And I'm assuming you don't have any kids yet.
no, no, not yet. Eventually, when I figure out the visa stuff, we have some other stuff to figure out first, but
For
yeah.
sure. You're
So
young. You're young, bro. You're young.
yeah, tell me a little bit about your project. You have Creator Method, correct? Is that what
Hmm.
your project you're working
Yeah.
on?
Yeah, it's one of them. It's one of them. So Creator Method is kind of like it's an offshoot of our larger media company. So we have a media company. It's called Valeriainc, and it is
Hmm.
the media company that supports my wife's personal brand. So we have I think it's like 16 full-time people. So we have actually like full-time employees. They're not contract. We have contractors as well as the 16. And it consists of like a team that does monetization. It consists of a team that does production, both pre-production and post-production, administrators, finance, anything and everything that most creators would outsource to like management companies and agents. We decided to do it all in house, and we decided to take all of um, that kind of financial risk upon ourselves to be able to retain control of Valeria's career. So in doing that, which is somewhat unorthodox, both at the time that we did it and now, as a result, we have this team of people who most of them have been with us for several years. We have very little turnover in terms of our team, and we've just acquired a ton of knowledge on how to grow an audience and how to monetize an audience and how to really develop a personal brand. So taking that 8 years now of knowledge and our 16 full-time team members, we decided to turn that into an academy and a community. I should say community first, because I believe that the community aspect of it is probably the if not equal and maybe a little bit more of the value proposition that we offer. So that's what it is. So we went in and we created a platform where we put in, I think, our initial video count. We did 42 long form videos, sitting down myself, Valeria, and the CEO of Valeriainc. So that we have like an actual CEO who runs it. It's not me. And we sat down, and the three of us sat down for like a week. We locked ourselves up in a studio, and we just talked about everything that we know how to do. And then we put that out, and we offered it to our audience. So we had a good number of people join us. They pay an annual membership fee. And the best thing that about the not the best, like the most interesting thing that I have found about this community and that I'm so pleasantly surprised about is the level of communication that they have with each other. So we have, I think right now, 60 members. So we have 60 members. That's it. So it's still small, and we set up like a WhatsApp group for them. And if I showed you the WhatsApp group, it's all day, 24/7, boom, 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 boom. It's like,
Yeah.
and it just keeps going and going. So they're reaching out to each other for support. They're breaking out. Like we have like a live weekly call with myself, our CEO Rachel, and Valeria, with the entire group, with all of the members. And what's incredible to see is that in addition to that live weekly call, they're breaking out and they're doing their own calls. Like
Hmm.
they're meeting with each other, and then they send us the video of the call, and then we post it into the archives of our on our platform that they can go in and see afterwards. So it's really become this community where creators typically work in a silo, like they work by themselves and they're lonely and scared, and they don't know who to bounce ideas off of. They have no one to talk to when they succeed. They have no one to talk to on the failures. They have no one to talk to with the problems. And I thought that it would be like myself and Rachel and Valeria kind of helping them through all of that and mentoring them, which we're doing, but it's more so they're doing it with each other. So I've
Yeah.
understood the true value of what we're doing is we're providing them this community where they've come in kind of within this community, they feel safe, and they're just in constant communication with each other. And it's really heartwarming to see that that they're doing this. So that's the premise of what we're doing. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really interesting, and it kind of circles back to what you said about like, I think in general the people you surround yourself is so important, right? And like if you, I've noticed here in Toronto, there's a few similar communities just of creators, and just by connecting with certain people through either content creation or comedy, right? You generally, I'm attracted towards the like like-minded people that also are working towards
Yeah.
something, and you kind of create your own community. And yeah, kind of to your point, especially if they're, I'm kind of linking this to why I want to move to the States. If that community is kind of the kind of people you were talking about with way more avenues, this like, so
Well,
I'm kind of
the kind of community,
yeah,
sorry, the kind of community I'm talking about and the support I'm talking about, you can do through a platform like mine. Like
right.
anybody can do what I'm saying. So you can find these kind of groups where you can join. So the support you can get, I think, virtually,
Hmm.
it's being in a place. I really believe in proximity to opportunity.
Right,
So the
right.
support factor is one. The support factor you can get through these online communities like ours, but it's that proximity to opportunity,
Hmm.
where you're out and you meet someone, or you have another creator who lives 5 minutes away who's got a similar size audience, or smaller or bigger, it doesn't matter,
Yeah.
and you can get together. Something as really basic and simple as you get together for lunch, you snap a selfie, and you tag them as collaborator, they accept it, and now they're exposed to your audience, you're exposed to their audience. A brand might see that, because a brand who have never seen you before will see you being on the other creators social
Right, right.
media, and then they might then go down the rabbit hole and look at your content and be like, you're perfect for my brand, and then you
Hmm.
get a phone call. So it's that kind of like just proximity to opportunity that you don't get in a country like Canada specifically, that Canada can't, like, there's other, like, so for example, if you're in the mining industry, my understanding is there's a large infrastructure in the mining industry in Canada. There's
Sure.
a large infrastructure in like energy and whatever. Like there's a number of industries that if you're in those industries, Canada's a great place for you. But if you're specifically in the entertainment industry,
Hmm.
I would say that Canada is like, you're in an inferior position, just from a like a strategic perspective in
Right.
Canada. And if you look at all of the great artists, like Bieber bounced.
Yeah.
Drake says he's in Toronto. Drake's not in Toronto. Like
Yeah.
he's rarely in Toronto. Drake's here most of the time,
Yeah.
right? Like I see him. I've been to two of his concerts here already. So like he's here, and so like if you look at all of the great talents, they've all left Canada,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, no, for
yeah,
sure. And it makes sense why. So, so kind of on the topic of your experience in this industry, right? And so you said
yeah,
what, 8 years you guys have been at this for, right? And I think even
yeah,
longer for yourself. Did you do it were you in kind of the marketing industry before you started with social media specifically?
yeah. So my first job in digital, there was no social media when I started in this
Right.
industry, but I think it was in 97,
Hmm.
19, before you were born, bro. I was
Yeah,
online doing shit online before you were born.
that's awesome.
So yeah, I mean, in '97, I worked for like my first kind of exposure to the internet was no, actually it was probably 90, it was 98. So I graduated college, I graduated university in 96 with a degree in geology. And then I went to work for this place called Future Shop because I'd never touched
Oh,
a
I remember
computer in
Future
college.
Shop. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
R.I.P.
So yeah. Well, they were sold to
Best Buy or something like that.
Best Buy. Yeah,
Yeah.
they were sold to Best Buy. So when I graduated college in '96, I was like just a lost kid. I didn't know what
Right,
to
right,
do,
right. Where
right?
did you
So
go to college, by the way? If you were
Western.
on Western, cool. Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I went to Western in London, Ontario, and I got a degree in geology. So, I mean, it's a degree in nothing.
Yeah.
And so basically, yeah, basically I graduated and then I didn't know what to do. And my father said to me, look, if you don't have a job, then you have to get out. Like I went home
Hmm.
after college and he goes, if you don't have a job, like tour like kind of, shitty apartment at Bathurst and Steeles. And
Yeah.
he said, if you don't have a job within a week, you have to leave here. And I'm like, where am I going to go? And he's like, it's not my problem. You have to have a
Hmm.
job. And I said, I'm holding out for a job in geology. And
Yeah,
he
yeah.
said, I don't care what he said, I don't give a shit what you're holding out for. If you're not working, you can't live here anymore. And
Yeah.
so
You studied rocks
I
for
got a
four
job at
years, now kick rocks. Get out of here, kid.
exactly. And so then I went to yeah, I had a buddy of mine, this guy Vadim, and Vadim said, no, you should go to Future Shop. So I went, I got a job. I'm lucky they accepted me. And Future Shop was the first time I touched a computer.
Okay, cool.
So I was, yeah, I don't know how old I was. I was like 25, 26.
Okay.
All my essays in college were handwritten. And
Yeah.
so yeah, that was my first time touching a computer. And then after that, I worked for this company. I worked for this company selling online marketing for like schools and universities, ironically. And then after that, yeah, I kind of one thing led to another, and I started an online company in late 1999. It was an online restaurant directory, and since then, I've been in the online industry in one way, shape, or form. Since then, in 2011, I started a company that was competing with Groupon. I don't know if
Okay.
you kind of remember that.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so I competed with Groupon. That business took off really quick. We raised like $32 million after being in business for a year. So that was a big event for me. And I mean, so we did that, and then I did all kinds of stuff. I had a Facebook monetization platform where I was partners with 1,000 different Facebook publishers. Some of them
Hmm.
were actually Hollywood celebrities. We had an office in LA. A lot of them were just these kind of like, accounts that had pictures of cats and shit, right? Or like funny cat videos.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so we had partnerships with them where they would post our articles, and then we would do a rev share on the display ads that were on those articles. So we did that for a while, and then Facebook had a change in policy, so we couldn't do that anymore. And then yeah, and then Valeria just one day, like, $10,000 hit our bank account, and I didn't know where it was from. And Valeria said, I asked her, do you know anything about this money? And she says, yeah, somebody just paid me to feature their like cosmetics in my YouTube videos. And I was shocked.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
so,
yeah. And you
yeah.
discovered that. So that's very interesting because you were literally kind of on the precipice. You're like a pioneer of the internet. And then, back in 97 when it was literally just kind of becoming a thing and it wasn't common by any means at all, you started your career in there and you've seen it evolve and you've been somehow kind of involved in it ever since, right? So I
Yeah.
guess a good question to ask you would be like, since you've seen this evolution and maybe you can kind of take that experience and project it into the future, which social media
Mhm.
platform do you see, like established or not, right? Whatever we have, everything that exists and whatever is coming in with AI and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, what do you see dominating the market in the next, say, 5 years? Where do you see this landscape going?
Look, I think that so something that recently happened with the kind of TikTokification of social media,
Hmm.
which is like short form video in full vertical format, that really changed everything. The whole like user engagement changed, everything changed. There's been this like mass kind of migration to short form content. I believe long form is coming back. I think long form kind of took a bit of a hiatus while when people started consuming short form. But I do feel that long form coming back. I think audio is going to be continue to be strong. So when you ask me, I don't think short form is going anywhere. I think a lot of the attention is going to go back to long form. So if you ask me, look, I think YouTube is going to continue to dominate. I don't know that shorts, although shorts, they do have scale with shorts. I don't believe they're going to win that game. I feel that Instagram will win that game. I do
Right,
feel that
right.
Instagram will win the game, and I have reasons why. I believe that YouTube will continue to dominate in long
Hmm.
form video content. I think platforms like Spotify for audio are going to continue to dominate. So I think long form audio is going to, I think it's really important to have a podcast. So I think you're doing the exact right thing. I think it's important to have a podcast. I think it's important to publish the long form video of that podcast to YouTube,
Yeah.
because going back to your question, I believe YouTube is going to continue to be a dominant platform and continue to grow. I believe that Instagram is going to continue to dominate. I really do. I think they're doing a really good job. I also believe that eventually, I could be wrong on this one, but I think that TikTok is going to lose a lot to Instagram,
Right, right.
because I believe that the charm that TikTok had initially and continues to have, it's this like platform for young people. It's this platform where people can go and there's very little censorship, and it's kind of, it had this like cool indie vibe in the beginning.
Hmm.
But as it matures, as both the platform matures and as the audience on that platform mature,
Yeah.
they're going to more appreciate Instagram, because they're going to care less about videos about like kind of a lot of the junk you see on TikTok. And
Right.
as they get older, they're going to care more about more meaningful content like conversations like these, which, although they are on TikTok, but that's not why people go to TikTok. Like, you go to TikTok to just like completely waste your time. Like, you're going there for straight
Right.
entertainment. When I go to Instagram, for me, it's a combination of both entertainment and value, but it's
Hmm.
more like high level entertainment, like entertainment that will also educate me.
I
So
do.
I think Instagram is going to
Yeah.
continue to dominate.
I do feel
I
that a
think
little
I think
bit.
TikTok I think TikTok will eventually be banned.
Yeah, well, and there's also a bunch of policy that they're trying to get through in the States right now. You see that's kind of unstable with TikTok. I have no idea how that's going to go, but that can't help the general marketing for the platform, right? And also, yeah, I do feel a little dirty when I go on TikTok and I leave the app, you know what I mean? I tell myself it's my job, so I kind of go in to kind of keep up with whatever's going on there, but I do try to limit myself extremely to how much I actually engage with the content as opposed to trying to be creative and put out content, right?
So yeah, so I believe that TikTok will eventually be sold. In
Yeah,
order
yeah,
for them to
yeah.
stay, like, in order for, yeah, so it will be sold to a US entity. Once it's sold to a US entity, they're going to have to adhere to similar kind of censorship laws
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
that Meta has, right? So
Exactly.
then it'll become like kind of like they'll almost become the same, I think, over time.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and I think that's what's going to happen. I don't believe that America will continue to, quite frankly, allow like a China-owned app
Right.
to dominate,
Because
because I mean, look at China, right? Not to get sorry to interrupt you, but not to get like geopolitical, but like China they didn't even consider letting YouTube into China. They didn't
exactly.
even consider letting any meta platforms into China. So to me, I'm just like, I'm sitting here, I'm looking at the United States, like, why is the United States allowing like a China-based platform when China didn't even for a second allow a
Yeah.
US-based platform,
Yeah, don't
right?
get me wrong. I completely agree on the political aspect. It's literally like you're with open arms allowing like a spy into your bedroom, you know what I mean? That's like a metaphor for
That's
what,
not the problem.
you know.
That's not the problem. That's not the problem
Well,
with
it's
TikTok.
data, right?
That's not the problem.
What is
What
it?
data? Well, they know that like a 15-year-old kid is watching like girls dance in a bikini.
Well, they're
Nobody cares about that data.
also they have oh yeah, okay, well maybe I see where you're going here. There's another aspect to where because of how integrated into our society TikTok is and the fact that it is a Chinese technology, they can now influence the kind of general
That's the
minds.
problem.
Yeah,
That's the problem. The problem is I don't remember the last count. Maybe it's like 192 million Americans.
right.
That's insane, bro.
Yeah.
That's like almost 60% of
And
the
now
US
they have a
population. So
direct branch to them, to their lives and to influence. Okay, yeah, I see where you're
to
going.
young
Yeah.
to young people. So
Yes, yes.
imagine a presidential election, and
Hmm.
imagine China has an interest in one candidate over another candidate.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
what do they have to do?
Yeah.
They can take like the candidate that they want, they dial up like information that is like pro that candidate,
Hmm.
and then they simultaneously dial up information that is anti the candidate they don't want.
Yeah.
So they just like they dial it up, and then they're basically calling the election. That I don't believe that that's a good place for America to be,
No, that's
or
obviously
Canada,
not.
or
Yeah, that's obviously
yeah,
not.
or
And then I don't
Canada.
know, Canada said they might follow suit, but we have our own issues here. I don't know if you saw just yesterday there was an election. So for the first time since I think the like mid to late 90s, the Conservative Party won the general election here in Toronto, St. Paul's, which was kind of insane. And that tells you less about kind of the um whether we're conservative or liberal. It's just more that people want to change, right? Like with the stuff that's going on. But it's
Yeah,
yeah,
look, I think that regardless of kind of where you sit on that spectrum, like left or right, at the end of the day, like the numbers don't lie and the economy doesn't lie, and like the
yeah,
increased taxes across the board don't lie, and property values like skyrocketing out of control don't lie, and I don't know, like homelessness, unemployment, like these are all metrics that are really like they're easy to look at and analyze. Inflation, interest rates, like these are all things that you can see a direct result of poor leadership. And I think, like uh Pierre
yeah.
Poilievre, I believe it's pronounced.
Polyev, yeah,
Polyev. I mean, he's laying it all out there. Like he's doing
yeah.
a great job on social media.
I
So
like him because he's
we'll see
funny.
what happens. I just like his straightforward approach. Like he was
Yeah.
asked by a reporter, like, you know, like a question, and he was like, "Well, what do you
The
mean? Like,
Apple clip. Did you see
like,
this?
yeah,
That's what you're talking about?
the
Yeah.
Apple clip. I don't know. Yeah, I don't remember specifically what he was being asked, but he's like, quote me.
And
and that's yeah,
that shows you how influential social media is to these kind of elections, right? And to the general public's opinion, because like you, for example, you're kind of removed from this, right? You're an American now, you're living there, so you're as much as I don't know how much you're still interested in Canadian politics, but
I'm still
exactly
interested in it.
you know
I'm still
exactly what
interested in it.
I said when I said the Apple clip. You're like, yes, the Apple clip, right? So that shows
Yes,
you how
yes,
one
yes,
little
yes.
interview, one little snippet goes so far to raise his profile versus, and imagine China wants to do something with your election right now. It's a huge, actually, it's very
Yeah,
interesting to see what happens on your side of the border now in November, right? That's going to be insane. I think for us Canadians, we're holding our popcorn, and it's our favorite
yeah,
Netflix, the
yeah.
new Game of
I
Thrones
think
show.
Yeah, well, I mean, but I mean, to be clear, I'm still Canadian. Like I'm still a
Yeah.
Canadian citizen. I'm not a U.S. citizen. So I'm not going to be voting in the U.S. election. I will vote in the Canadian election. But look, I mean, yeah, it's. I think I know what's gonna happen in the U.S. I think kind of the writing's on the wall. What I found really interesting, is I don't know if you saw Logan Paul. Like Logan Paul had Trump
On his podcast, yeah.
on his podcast, which to me, I see such a shift in the fact. Look, the fact that like if you look at, I highly recommend you take a look at the an episode of Colin and Samir. You know Colin and Samir.
No, I don't.
Colin and Samir are like they create content about the creator economy. They interview
Mm-hmm.
influencers. They recently had Adam Mosseri, the head of Instagram, and they
Right.
did like a 60 or a 90-minute interview talking to him about everything related to Instagram. And one of the things he said, I'm gonna tie it right back right now to this whole thing on Logan Paul, is he said that power continues to shift, and he sees it in the data. Power continues to shift to the individual,
Mm-hmm.
meaning the media, like the traditional media, like the CNNs of the world and like the Vices and all these other whatever media you're into, those are gaining less. The data on that is lowering. Like the viewerships are continuing to lower and lower and lower on kind of these like traditional media outlets, regardless whether they're on the internet or in print or on TV or on YouTube. It doesn't matter. And where that intention is going is it's going to the individuals. So
Absolutely.
you have certain people who are either political commentators or people who are reporting on news or talking about whatever, and that shift continues to happen. So what I found interesting, going back to this whole thing with Logan Paul and Trump, is that as opposed to Trump prioritizing being interviewed by certain media outlets, which he, by the way, just doesn't trust them overall.
Right.
He went and did Logan Paul. He did Logan Paul. Like, what is that telling you? Is that, pre-election, the presidential candidate is interviewing with Logan Paul. Like, this isn't like a serious esteemed journalist. It's
Yeah.
Logan Paul. And so I think that is really indicative, and that is really telling of a major shift that is continuing to happen in the world, where, if a presidential candidate is choosing an influencer, like a kind of like a
Yeah.
traditional influence, if you
Yeah.
will, to spread their word, over like the media, that's telling you something. So we'll see what happens, but I think that was a real power move on Trump's part to accept that interview with Logan Paul. And you know what? One of my favorite things about that interviewer
What?
was the interview was that Prime, like the drink,
Right, right,
is
right.
like Logan Paul's energy drink. It was splattered everywhere,
Everywhere. Yeah, yeah.
right? He had it placed everywhere. So you can imagine that they obviously asked Trump's camp, and Trump himself probably, is that okay with you? And he said, yeah, of course it's okay.
Sure, yeah, because he's a businessman
Again,
as
it's
well, yeah.
he's a businessman. So what I'm seeing when I see an interview like that, I'm really seeing kind of the divergence, or sorry, the convergence of personal brand,
Mm-hmm.
entrepreneurialism, capitalism, creator economy, influencers. It's all coming together. So
Oh, yeah.
it's just, and so regardless of where you are on the political spectrum, what your choices are, just seeing that happening is really it's illustrating a major shift
Yeah,
in the way we consume
absolutely.
content.
And I think that I had a conversation with my friend the other night about this exact thing, how Trump did Logan Paul, how like just to think how much influence those two brothers from Ohio have over society in general is insane to think. And whether you love them,
Mm-hmm.
you hate them, you're talking about them, and you can't help but like personally being in this industry, respect them immensely, right? What they've done and what they've been
Yeah,
able to achieve. So you can't take anything away from them. You can have opinions, but that's their job. Their job is for you to have an opinion about them, right? That helps them. That's what they do, right? To some
yeah,
extent, obviously.
yep,
It, but yeah, and relating that to comedy specifically, right? It used to be a few channels, right? Like the Late Show, the Tonight Show. You get on there, you do a 5 minute spot, you sell tickets.
yeah.
Nowadays, nobody gives a shit about Jimmy Fallon, whatever show. How many followers do you have? Do I like your content? I'll buy a ticket. It's so yeah,
I
you
wouldn't
know.
say I wouldn't say nobody gives a shit about Jimmy Fallon, but it's interesting. So you just raised a really good point. So we just talked about the fact that everything continues to shift to the person, right? To the personal brand, to the creator,
To
to
the
the
person,
influencer.
yeah.
That shift, correct. But if you notice, like however long these like Tonight shows have been around with their comedy skits and they're interviewing, however long, 30, 40, 50 years, who I don't even remember who the first one was. But notice that those shows were back then they were forward thinking. It's the Jimmy Fallon show,
Right,
right?
right.
It's so they knew back then, before social media at
Yeah.
scale, before all of this, they had the producers of those shows had the foresight to understand that we have to put the human being on the front,
Right, right. But it
not
was still the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, not the Jimmy Fallon show, right?
yes, yes,
Yeah.
but still,
Yeah.
when people were tuning in, they weren't saying for themselves, "Hey, I'm gonna go watch the Tonight Show." They were saying, "I'm gonna go watch Jimmy Fallon or
Yes,
whoever."
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So yeah, yeah. So I see what you're saying here, that the people were still attracted to the individual, right? Like the charisma, the whatever maybe empathy they had if they connected with this person, that's who they were there to see. And that's why there were a couple of options, right? There was, Colbert, Fallon,
Yeah,
Leno, whatever, and everybody had their own guy or girl. So
sure.
yeah. So yeah, no, that I definitely see that switch. And nowadays it's all it's yeah, it's building your personal, you are your own. I look at it this way, right? When I've had conversations with people, like I'm a business person, I'm trying to sell a product, but that product is me. That happens to be the
Yeah,
only difference between me and somebody who's selling shoes, or
yeah,
like I'm
yeah.
the product, my comedy, my hour, my charisma, my whatever, right? And actually, so interesting, since you've been in this business for so long, and you're now literally you're coaching various creators. What we talked about when I asked you the question about where you see the landscape being in 5 years, and what you mentioned about long form. So this is, I'll let you in a little bit of my kind of view why I'm doing the podcast, and you tell me what you think about my strategy, so to speak, right? So this is a little selfish, but maybe somebody listening to this
No,
can take a little tidbit from
let,
it. So what
let's
I
do it.
think, yeah, so what I think is the short form content has been great for my growth, obviously, a lot of views and a lot of eyeballs,
Hmm.
not necessarily direct monetization, but like I said,
Yep.
eyeballs, right? I'm bringing eyeballs to myself, and I'm selling tickets, for example, right? But like how I really am thinking to nurture this audience is I'm thinking the short form content will help me with numbers, right? People following me, some videos blow up, and then the way that I see the long form content, what I see that helping me with is building a relationship with this audience, truly, right? Because
Of course.
at the end of the day, the short form content is somewhat, you can only go so deep. It is somewhat superficial, right? So people come, they're interested, it piques their interest, right? Like kind of the big ad or the banner in the store. And then they come in and they see what's up. And that's where my long form content comes in. Eventually, I'm still pretty early on in my comedy career. Eventually, that might be, an hour special. But for now, all I have is this podcast, right? And the numbers, I'm definitely right now at my level, right? The numbers are all coming mostly from short form content, right? The podcast isn't
Mhm.
doing great numbers, but it's there, and I'm trying to build it because I'm trying, for the few fans that I actually have now that are actually interested enough to listen to this whole conversation. They're kind of, I know personally that's the way it works for me. I discovered Joe Rogan, for example, through UFC, and then I spent so many hours with him in my ears, and I feel like I know him, right? What So that's the way it works. So what would you say, I guess, in my position, what would you say, like, give me some advice. What would you say about that, and where would you say?
So, yeah. So what you're talking about is like in general, any kind of a brand, whether it's a personal brand or like a CPG brand, which is consumer packaged goods,
Mm-hmm.
like a beverage or a clothing line, they have what's called marketing funnels, right? So there's top of funnel, there's the middle of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel. In your case, and in the case of content creators, top of funnel today, where the attention is in short form content. So
Right.
top of funnel is the awareness piece, it's the branding piece, it's where people learn about you for the first time. So yes, I agree with you on your strategy of really going hard on short form. Okay. um which should include short clips of podcasts like these,
Yeah,
by the
which
way.
I do.
And I don't know if you started doing that, which you do.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Oh, you have that top of funnel, and then there's the kind of the middle of the funnel. And middle of the funnel is where you build brand affinity, is where you really take a person in, and they engage with your brand in a deeper way, in a deeper conversation. That is long form as it pertains to content creators. So you have your top of funnel, short form. You have your middle of funnel, where you're building affinity and you're building a relationship with your community. The thing is that then there's the bottom of the funnel, and the bottom of the funnel is your conversion. And when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to like a clothing brand, they have their top of the funnel, they use a lot of influencers to make sure the influencers, like Gymshark as an example. Gymshark,
Right.
top of funnel, they had this strategy for years where people were wearing their clothing. Middle of funnel is when the people who saw the clothing on the influencer went from the influencer's account and started following Gymshark's Instagram.
Right.
And so now Gymshark is like building that relationship because they're holding them in. And maybe they had a lot of short form, maybe they also have a podcast, I'm not sure. And that's their kind of middle of funnel, right? Is building that affinity. And with them, they had on the bottom of the funnel, they have the conversion, and that's where people buy. They have their product, which they sell.
Mm-hmm.
So for creators, you've got your top of funnel, which is, let's say, short form and social media in general. You've got your middle funnel, which is long form video content and and audio content, where you're really kind of embracing the audience. And then now the question is what are you doing for your conversion, which is in your case monetization. So I agree with your strategy on the top of funnel. I agree with it on the middle of funnel by doing this podcast, which, by the way, I think a lot of people in your position at your age and at this stage of your career, you're not thinking as advanced. They're not as advanced as you, who are now building out this podcast, which I think is brilliant on your part. So now you have to think about what does that bottom of the funnel look like for you? And I
Mm-hmm.
believe the bottom of the funnel look like for you. I don't have like a ton of experience on the like on the comedian side, but it's, to your point, it's selling tickets.
Right.
right? So that's a bottom of funnel kind of conversion for you. And then it's going to be brand deals. Look, I think part of that funnel is it's not only audience that are going through that funnel for you, it's also brands, right? You're appealing
Right.
to brands. So what I would be doing, if you're asking me for my advice, what I would be doing in your position, and this is something that we, in Creator Method, we're always, telling people to do, and it's something that we do for Valeria, is I would literally tag every single thing that you have on your body or in your background. If you're wearing a hat, tag
All
the
right.
hat. If you're
Okay.
wearing a t-shirt, tag the t-shirt. I'm not saying go out of your way and start buying a bunch of stuff in order to, to appeal to brands, but you're already wearing the stuff. You're already,
Yeah.
like, you have a brand affinity, like for your t-shirt or for your hat or whatever. And start doing that, because as you start tagging them and your videos continue to get scale, like your short form might get 80, 100, 200,000. You have videos in the hundreds of thousands of views, right? So
Yeah.
if
I
you
have
have a brand that's,
videos in the tens of millions of views on short
you
form.
have
Yeah.
videos
Yeah.
in the tens of millions. So
Yeah.
imagine you had a video in the tens of millions of views. I understand on short form. If you have that and you were wearing a hat, like a
Right.
baseball hat,
Right.
and that
Right.
baseball hat, you tag that baseball hat, and now all of a sudden they start gaining audience, like, because those 10 million views, part of those start converting to their audience, and they start seeing, like, this uptick. They see that it's you. Maybe you did it once, whatever, they don't care. But after you've done it with some consistency, either they might reach out to you and say, hey, listen, like, we should talk, because, like, there's an opportunity, right? Or maybe you'll reach out to them. So I think that conversion, that piece of conversion, as you're feeding through the audience on those various stages of the funnel, you have to also be attracting brands in that, and it's the same funnel, which is beautiful,
Right.
right?
Right.
That's the beautiful part about it. So where the brands, tag them. I'm not saying to you to go out and start making content saying, hey, I'm going to review hats, I'm going to review t-shirts, because that's not your thing. But
Exactly.
you're already
Exactly.
wearing the shit anyways, man. You're
Yeah.
wearing it
So
anyways.
that's actually a really good point, and something I wanted to talk to you about, because so I'm currently, I have a agency that helps me with my brand deals. They do
Mhm.
different creators, and for the longest time I was doing it myself, and I was very hesitant to see what it's like to work with this agency. They wanted to sign me for a number of years. I brought it down to one just because I
Sure.
wasn't sure about it. And my suspicions were essentially, they're great. They do a lot of good work, but I'm one of their only comedic creators. And also because it's a Canadian agency specifically, believe it or not, I'm one of their big fish, which is I don't love. But so it's what I've found is that on their outbound pitches, what a lot of companies say is that the problem with my content, my comedic content, is that I'm not safe enough for them, right? So brands love my engagement, but they don't think I'm safe enough for them, so they don't advertise with me. And what I've found is that I'm like, okay, but I'm getting so many emails from brands to post for me, like asking me to post like random air
So
conditioner.
let's stop. Sorry,
Yeah,
sorry. I want you to stop for a second. I want you to stop for
sure,
a second.
sure,
When you say that they're going outbound for you, so first of all, I don't believe that outbound is like a real viable strategy. You might prove me wrong right now by saying that they're doing great numbers in outbound, that they
sure.
go outbound and they're bringing you all kinds of deals. I would guess that they're not. They're going
No,
outbound. They're
yeah,
not.
and
They're
that's
okay. But the reason, let me
yeah,
just finish
yeah.
my thought,
I
because
got
the
you.
reason isn't because your content's not safe enough or blah 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 blah. It's that when you go outbound to a brand, okay, completely cold, without showing them that the influencer or like the creator is not an actual, like, organic fan of the brand,
Hmm.
then their response is going to be nothing. It's crickets. Like, you're not going to get shit. However, what I'm saying to you is, what I'm suggesting to you, by tagging the existing shit that you're already wearing,
Hmm.
you're showing them two things. Number one, that you organically like their stuff. That's what they want.
Yeah,
Okay. Number two, you're showing them data. So yeah, you can tag them, and if they went to your page and like, let's say they went to your Instagram account, like, oh, he's got like 900 followers. Oh, cool. But then they go to your page, like, wait a second, this guy's got 86,000 followers and he's tagging my stuff. Maybe I should talk to him. I'll give you a perfect example. So I have a very good friend of mine. I just saw him last night. I was with him last night. His brother has a cold plunge company.
hmm,
He has a cold plunge company. And, that cold plunge company, they're Canadian. And there's a guy in Winnipeg doing cold every day. He does cold plunge. He has like a million plus audience. And every
right,
day he
right.
does cold plunges. Right. And I believe that guy may have I think he's a different case because it was so related. The content was so related that they were able to communicate with each other. But I promise you, it wasn't the guy doing the cold plunges or his agent that reached out to my buddy's brother's company to say, hey, come and do a deal with me. He was discovered because his content was relevant. And
Yeah.
had he been tagging that brand, it would have been accelerated even faster. So in your case, you're already making content. I'm telling you, man, start tagging all the brands that you're working with.
That's a
Or
yeah,
not that you're working with, that you're wearing.
that's a great piece of advice. And listen, like that's the nature of, I found in my life again that like I can take somebody like you that has so much experience and you're telling me all this valuable advice, but usually when I actually take something to heart is when through experience, essentially, right? And
Sure.
I'll tell you something that how I learned exactly what you're saying naturally through my experience just recently with the jujitsu video you told me about, right? So yeah.
Yeah.
So look, I made a few of those videos. They did great. And that first one that you're talking about, I posted it like last week. It's already over 6 million, right? And I said, okay, I've been doing martial arts my whole life. I'm a fan of this. And even though I'm a comedian and that is the furthest thing away from martial arts, I said, listen, I made this funny video about jujitsu. I looked up all these jujitsu brands, right? And I said, look, I'm getting a lot of like traction in my account with MMA, the MMA community. They're following me, they're DMing me, they're interacting with this video. I have an idea for a part 3 and a part 4. Would you like to sponsor it? And I sent it out to, I just Googled the top, 10 MMA brands and I reached out to them myself.
How did it go?
I got responses from at least 5 of them. One of them being one of my favorite brands, Hayabusa, huge brand, huge combat sports brands. And
Yeah.
we're now, they
Right.
just reached out yesterday. And so, yeah, the next video will be sponsored by them. I already have the idea. It's natural
Beautiful.
and it worked
That's
out.
beautiful.
So there we go.
You did it like in a different way, but yeah, like you took your content and based on the success of your content, you went outbound
Right.
versus going outbound saying, "Hey, I have this many followers and do you want to sponsor my content?" That's just a
Exactly.
weak attempt, right?
Yeah.
What you did was it's different than the strategy I'm suggesting, but it's still like it's an extremely good strategy. Yeah, like you had a piece of content that performed really well, and then you speculated and said who would be the type of sponsors that this content would it would resonate with, and
Mhm.
and then you went out and you reached out to them. I think that even more so had you already have been wearing
Right.
Hayabusa as an
Right.
example, and
Yeah.
it would have already tagged, they would have seen an uptick on their socials,
Uh-huh.
and they would have been like, whoa. So that way when you reached out to them, as much as they it was like you did the deal with them, you would have, I believe, been in an even better negotiating position because then they would have seen the results because you did it, for free. Now, I could be wrong too, and they could have maybe turned around and said, you're going to do it for free anyways. You already did it once for free. You might do it again. But I
Sure, sure.
don't think that that's the case.
Yeah.
Some brands will string you along, but you can tell, like, especially if they have a competitor, you can kind of position it that like I wore your stuff in the first video and I tagged you. Hopefully you guys saw that. But in this next video that I'm doing, because I already have, to your point, part 2 and part 3, I would like to tag you again, but you can kind of allude to the fact that, but I'm also considering some other brands too, but my
Hmm.
preference would be to continue featuring your brand, and that they might get a little kind of FOMO and be like, okay,
Yeah.
I gotta lock this guy down.
Yeah,
But
that's
either way, you did the
great.
deal.
That's great. Yeah. So now I'm thinking this is giving me a lot of hope because I was thinking for Valeria, for example, right? She's more of a lifestyle creator. So I
Sure.
find that I do think that it might be, and maybe because I have experience only in comedy, um, I'm like, man, if I was that type of creator, I could just, what are the brands I use every day? But because I'm doing comedy, I'm like how are these brands going to relate to a joke I have about gay dolphins? Like what you know what I mean? So, but I talking to you now, I feel like I'm a little closed-minded because like I said, I'm selling myself. That's not necessarily only my comedy, but that's also like what I do in day-to-day
You know
life. So
what?
I should make a more of an effort to maybe
Yes.
integrate these things into my content.
Absolutely. It's not an effort. You're already wearing something anyways. What's the difference to you to
Yeah,
tag them?
exactly.
I just today, you know what? And I'm not like a paid influencer, because I'm just like all of my effort goes towards Valeria's social media and our kind
Right.
of satellite businesses that have evolved from there. But I'm still like, it doesn't cost me anything. Like today, I dropped off my kid to summer camp,
Hmm.
our eldest kid, and I noticed he was wearing like a Billionaire Boys Club hoodie. So I was
Hmm.
like, hey, like, and I took a picture. I did like a small carousel with him. I didn't take it because he was wearing the hoodie, but I noticed that he was wearing the hoodie after I took the photos, and I was like, hey, I might as well tag these guys.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone's calling me, but what does it hurt? What's the difference?
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Right?
that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. All right. Lots of great talk about content. Obviously, you're the content king behind the scenes, you know what I mean? So that was a lot of great advice. One more question I'll ask you before I let you go here.
Mhm.
Actually comes specifically from my wife, right? I'm like, "Hey, I'm going to talk to Gary. Any questions you want me to ask him?" And she asked me, "What are, in your opinion, the keys to a healthy marriage?" I know we're taking a pivot here. We're
No, that's cool, man.
yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. Listen, I think that it's really, really crucial to understand that your partner needs to evolve separately from you,
Right.
right? You are as much as you are one, and I get that everybody has this, um, this ideal where we're one now, but you really aren't, right? So one of the things that I think is really important, among many things, is giving your partner the space to evolve on their own individually. Like let them evolve, give them their time, let them pursue their own interests, and then meet to kind of share in that evolution to see like this is how you evolve, this is how I evolved, and then you can come back together, you can kind of compare notes, and then you can evolve together. But exclusive like evolution together all the time, I think it causes friction, and it doesn't allow people to like naturally progress. Like I'm into motorcycles now, right?
Hmm.
Valeria's never getting on a bike with me.
Right.
She thinks it's stupid, like, but I do it, and she never once said to me, I don't want you doing it. She will
Right.
never say like the dumbest shit that I want to do. She'll never say to me, don't do it. And when she wants to go off into some retreat and they want to like sit around and talk about like their feelings and some weird shit that I don't necessarily agree with,
Yeah.
I don't stop her and say to her, I think that's dumb what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think it's giving each other freedom to evolve. I think giving each other freedom to evolve is probably one of the most important things that you can do.
That's awesome. I really like that because I remember when I like very early on in our relationship years ago now, one of the things that kind of drew me to my wife as a person is the fact that we agreed on a certain topic that I had an issue with before within other relationships was that I feel like especially early on you become really attached to each other and you think of yourself as like a unit, which is true in some sense,
Yeah.
but at the end of the day,
Yeah.
I think the most toxic thing that comes out of that mindset is um, relying on another person for your own happiness. You have to realize that
Hmm.
that other person, you have to be proud of who you are as a person before you can let somebody else into your life, and then a healthy relationship flourishes. You can't to rely on somebody else to give you that piece of you that's missing is very selfish. Yeah. So I think that kind of
I
connects to
think
what
I
you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. A lot of people ask me like, how do I can't find my partner. I can't find
Hmm.
this person. There's nobody. And that's like a common thing that I hear. And like the fact of the matter is that you have to be concentrated on improving yourself, because
Right.
what happens is as you improve yourself, the correct partner just magically appears,
Right.
right?
Which is
So
yeah.
if you're yeah, and I mean if you're putting your efforts on finding the partner as opposed to creating yourself, then what happens is you're gonna, and I've said this before and I got some heat for it. If you're spending your time instead of creating yourself and bettering yourself, and instead of taking all that time that you could have to improve yourself, you're taking that time to find a partner, chances are you're not very developed, and then you're just getting somebody who will settle for you because you're
Right.
underdeveloped. So really develop yourself, concentrate on yourself, and that partner will find you. That's kind of my belief when it comes to finding a like a
Yeah,
the
yeah,
ideal partner.
absolutely. A lot of people say like I deserve this or I deserve that. Become the person first,
Yeah.
right? Become the person you think you deserve. and then maybe you'll find somebody that kind of matches that, right? Because
Deserve based on what? Like,
exactly,
does you know what I
exactly.
mean?
Yeah,
Deserve based on what? Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah. So that's
you gotta put in the effort. Look, I'll put it to you this way. I'll put it to you this way. I don't see. Let's talk about guys for a second, because it's
sure.
mostly guys who come to me and tell me that they have this problem that they can't find the right woman. When they tell me this, it's not like, yeah, they may have some money. And so what happens is when they get some money, they think, okay, that's it. I'm a fully developed human being. I have everything that a woman would want right now. And the
Mm-hmm.
reality is that no, you're just a dude with money. So
Right.
yeah, you're gonna get some low level woman who
Yes.
her only criteria is cash. Cool. But if you want to actually find a woman that you want, then you have to develop other, you have to develop other things. You have to make sure you're fit. You have to make sure your mind is right. You have to make sure your kindness is intact and developing. Like
Yes.
you have to have a lot of other things. And so these guys, like, they're just not putting in the effort, and they're sitting there saying, I don't get it, man. I'm so fucking rich. And why don't I have a girl? You
Yeah.
don't have a girl because you're probably still an asshole. Like, and you haven't developed these other extremely crucial components of your being. So
Yeah.
that's kind of my take on it.
Yeah, and I can, for anybody that thinks that way, for the Andrew Tate fanatics of the world, or whatever, there's podcasts like that are like, I'm not a huge fan of, that are like, yeah, you need to get your money
Yeah.
straight, and like I
But
am
no, but
yeah,
you do need to get your money straight. Don't, like, I'm not
absolutely,
saying it's not
absolutely.
important, but you can't, like, if that's all you do and you literally don't concentrate on anything else and you're not putting any value to anything else that you like, any other aspect of you, then it's just a road for disaster. All
Yeah,
those miserable rich people that, people keep talking about, all these like miserable rich people, they're miserable because that's all they are, is rich. And which
yeah.
is like, it's important, but it could eat you eventually, all that money.
No, there are definitely more important things in life, and like there we go. I'm an example. I'm doing this comedy thing, and it's like by no means. So you said you did geology in university. I have a master's degree in chemistry, right? I could
Oh
have
wow.
gone, yeah. So I just graduated last year, and then I had the decision: do I go into consulting? Like a decent job, could be making some more, definitely more money than I'm making right now, or do I chase this thing that I actually am passionate about? This is what I chose, and my wife supported me 100%. I don't, I'm not rich by any stretch of the imagination. In fact, quite the opposite, but we're surviving together, and I think in the end, I look at this as a very awesome time that I try to, like, I get caught up a lot in what I have to do, and like, okay, this is where I have to take my career. I have to move to the States. I have to do this podcast. I have to do this show. But sometimes I forget to enjoy this, because hopefully one day when I do make it, I'll look back at with my wife and hopefully some kids and be like, remember when I was like, when we were struggling, and and now we're here. Look at this. This is pretty cool, right?
Listen,
So,
man, I'll put it to you this way. Like, you're 25 years old. Just like comparing to to me, you are far ahead of the game at the age of 25 than I was at the age of 25. So I assure you, and you live in a time where it's not easier to succeed, but there's more opportunities if you want to work. So if you're willing to put in
100%.
the effort, there's more opportunities. So yeah, man, like you're doing great to already have the talent that you do, and to be not just have the talent, but to actually be putting like the rubber to the road and putting it out there, putting that content out there and growing your audience and starting that kind of, that the ball rolling on generating income for yourself. Yeah, you're probably in like the top like 5 percentile of people your age in terms of it may not be cash today, but in terms of where you're going. So you just like stay that course, stay that
Yeah,
course.
yeah, yeah. I tell myself every day. I try to I try to keep it
Just keep
optimistic, and
going.
it's great. It's great. There's definitely times, like opportunities I've had, especially mostly in the States. So I did, Rogan's Club, Netflix is a joke recently in LA, just some surreal moments, and then we get back to reality and we keep grinding. But that's, yeah, ups and downs. That's life. Hey,
You know
listen,
what's the
Gary.
great, sorry,
Yeah.
one last thing. What's the great thing about content creation and specifically about what you're doing is that you can experience like a nice kind of linear growth, like year
Mm-hmm.
over year, in terms of your income and audience size and all that stuff. And what the wonderful thing is about this, this particular field that you've gone into is that you have the benefit of like nice linear growth year over year, but you're always holding a ticket, a lottery ticket, that
Mm-hmm.
one day it might just do this, right?
Yes.
It might do this, and the more work you put into it, the more content you put out, the more effort you put in, the higher the chance becomes. And that's why, like, when sometimes Valeria gets a little, she can get down on her growth, saying, "Oh,
Right, right.
like this month we didn't grow." I'm like, just keep going,
Yeah.
because I believe firmly that one day it's going to do this. I mean, it already has to a certain degree. She has 6.5 million followers across
Yeah,
4 platforms,
yeah,
but
exactly.
I believe that it's going to go even more, and I believe it'll go even more for you as long as you keep putting in the effort.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That is 100% the case. And I see it all the time with comedians that are not necessarily my peers here, but people that, like I said, when I was doing these shows in Austin and LA, the people that I was in rooms with and talking to, I was living a pipe dream. I'm like, these are literally my idols, right? I watched the
Yeah,
Super
yeah.
Bowl at Shane Gillis's house. I'm like, this guy is like, it's just, and a lot of people might get caught up in like, man, I want to do that, or a little bit of jealousy, but I see it as all these people, it's happening for all these people. I know all these people. I'm in rooms with all these people. I have to be next, right? That's kind of the
Yeah,
mindset
just
you
keep
have to
going,
have.
bro.
Yeah.
Just keep
Yeah.
growing. It's like I call it impatient patience,
Hmm.
because you got to be both impatient and patient simultaneously. You got to be impatient, which drives the work ethic and drives the output, but then you have to be patient, knowing that even though you put in all the work, it may not happen right away, and you have to keep going. And on
Effort
that note, sir,
and consistency. Yes.
effort
Thank
and
you so much.
consistency.
Thank you so
No,
much
thank you,
for
Matthew. I listen.
talking.
I I really appreciate it. And if you're ever in Miami, hit me up. You ever do sauna and cold plunge?
I do sauna almost every day, and I don't have a cold plunge, but I do a cold shower right after the sauna. So
All
I
right.
do my
So
best.
next time you're in Miami, DM me before you come. You'll come to my house and we'll do a sauna and cold plunge.
100%. 100%. Thank you so much for doing this, Gary. I'll see you soon in
My
Miami,
pleasure.
hopefully. And if you're ever in Toronto, hit me up too. We'll get together and connect.
Will do. Will
All
do.
right.
Take it easy, man.
See
All
ya.
the best. Bye bye.
Bye.